Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. This is episode number 248, dedicated to a man who on June 6th, 1999, won his first and only French Open title. Mr. Andre Agassi. And as always, thank you for listening and downloading another episode of the podcast. On today's episode, we welcome back to the podcast Mr. Iean Eagle. Those of you that have been around and listening for quite some time, remember Iean Eagle first made an appearance on the podcast back in June, maybe it was July of 2020. He is back now. Him and I have a fun time just catching up, talking about some things that happened this year with the Brooklyn Nets. Go back and discuss some comparisons between the early 2000s Nets and this year's team. Also discuss some things with him calling the French Open. Yes, he's done that for a long period of time. I love Iean Eagle. I love that we were able to kick off broadcasting month on the podcast with Iean Eagle making another appearance right here on the Jay Stevens Podcast. And joining us now here on the Jay Stevens Podcast, it's a guest we had on in 2020, and he's back on with us again today. It's Iean Eagle. He's everywhere, literally everywhere. The Nets, CBS, TNT. If you like tennis, he's there as well. Iean, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Jay. What happened in 2021? We couldn't keep it rolling.
Man, I dropped the ball. Got to do better next year. I had a guest on last week, and her and I had a connection via food. As odd as that may sound, her and I don't eat macaroni and cheese. So I was doing some digging and doing some looking up about you, and I found something about you and food. Now, it's not macaroni and cheese or a specific food that you cook on the stove or the oven and you eat. It's more condiments. Now, I see the look on your face. You might know where I'm going with this. There's word on the street that you don't eat condiments. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct. Not only do I not eat them, I've never had a number of them. I've never ingested them in my life.
Interesting. Say never in your life. So even as a kid, you may think ketchup or mustard.
No.
Never.
No. I was repulsed by them. I don't know. There was something obviously very deep that affected me as a young child that carried over. And now I've got Cal Ripken streaks going. It's not limited to only that, Jay. That's the amazing part. I was definitely a picky eater as a kid, and there are certain things that I've just never had. And some of them blow people away. I get it, and I obviously did not pick the subject matter, so I don't want this to dominate our discussion, but if you're curious, I'll give you a few. I'm more than willing to share.
The floor is yours.
I've never had a salad in my life. No, never had one. Never had a sip of coffee. Forget about a cup of coffee.
Okay.
Never had a sip of coffee. I've never had a peach.
Okay.
It's never happened. I never had eggplant. I've never had melon of any kind. I can keep going. I mean, this could dominate the next 30 minutes of conversation. I'll just leave it there. And then in 2023, when we do this again, I'll give you 5 more things I've never had.
Eggplant, peach. I've had peaches in a can, never the actual peach, the fruit. Salad. I literally have salad in my refrigerator. I'm trying to eat healthier, and so that's something I'm trying to put there. And I have salad dressing, but with no salad, I venture no salad dressing.
Well, just nailed on a really important part of the story, because you led with condiments, and to me, salad dressing, it's in the condiment family. I can't get away from it. So it really wasn't the salad that I had an issue with as a kid. It was the dressing. And then it all kind of came together as one that I just wasn't going to have any of it.
See, now this is interesting to me. I know when you say as a kid, a lot of kids have things with texture. Even adults have things with texture.
Yeah.
Where the texture of it they don't like, so they don't eat it, but they've had it at least once. You never touched it, so I don't know if it was the look of it. It could have been the texture thing in your mouth to where it tasted kind of weird or felt weird. But you're saying just as a youngster to your adult years, no, not going to have it.
I'm an all or nothing person, Jay. I'm very dedicated to that part of it. So mentally, if I'm with you, I'm with you. But if I'm not, there could be issues. So all of those things that we listed, that's just not a part of my life. I know people have asked me, well, you've never tried it. How would you know? Jay, I've never tried horse manure. I know I don't want it. And I cleaned it up for you.
I appreciate that. No, but I get it. That's one of those things, horse manure and the other things there that we know we never tried. We'll never try. Well, some people might. You and I, Iean, we're on the same page. We are not going to try those things at all.
It's not looking that way. And let me get this out in the open, Jay. I respect you in regards to the salad, eating healthier. I'm all for it. I'm all for that life. And I am behind anyone that has a certain food that they love. As long as you don't make me eat it, then we're good. But I've been at many a dinner where people around the table say, just have that. Come on. They want to see the first experience. And I don't really buckle to peer pressure. That's been a common thread throughout my life.
Speaking of being fresh and different things that have gone on, you are someone that if you're in the Brooklyn, Jersey area, you may have been a lifelong Nets fan. Well, you get to hear Iean Eagle on many broadcasts calling Nets games all throughout the seasons, going back, I believe, into the mid-'90s when you started calling those games first on radio, then on TV. And then now you have NFL duties, you have NBA duties, you have CBS duties, college basketball, even going into March Madness and the tournament. It seems like you're always fresh. How do you stay that way?
Sleep is really important. I did figure that out at some point amidst the 28 years of doing NBA and nearly 25 years now of doing NFL, college basketball. It's been in that range, 23, 24 years. And sleep is the one commonality that has to be a part of the equation. If you're not getting the necessary sleep, it's hard to bounce back from these events. There are some weeks where I'll do 5 games in a week, 5 different cities. That means many flights. That means many taxis or Ubers. That means many wake-up calls. And the bottom line is you got to get whatever that requisite amount of hours is. Everybody's different. As a young person, I would have told you, hey, I need 8 hours to function. If I got 8 hours now, that would be a huge upset. It's a rarity that I can even touch 8 hours. But if I'm 6 and above, I can function. You get me 6 hours of sleep, I can do whatever assignment you have in front of me, including 4 games the first day of the NCAA tournament. Anything less than 6, now we get into an area where I could be compromised mentally and physically. So that's always the number that I am gunning for. And look, there's some times where you can't avoid it. You have a 5 a.m. pickup. The game the night before ends at 10:30 or 11. You're not in bed until midnight. You don't fall asleep right away. So I recognize that over the course of the season, it's not going to be perfect, but I really do try to live by that mantra.
How do you get away from the pool of the people you work with saying, hey, let's go out after the game? You mentioned games getting over 10:30 or 11. You can mention Bill Raftery, but you also have done games with Jim Jackson. I don't know Jim Jackson's lifestyle, but I venture he may want to go out to just relax a little bit, cool off after the game. How do you kind of steer away from the peer pressure to go out and still get the amount of sleep you need?
Yeah, I learned the word no at some point. My first chapter of a play-by-play guy in my career, I didn't know that word. I just said yes. And if my analyst, producer, director wanted to go out, I joined them. If we hung until 2, 2:30, 3 in the morning, sometimes with Bill Raftery, those are the kind of hours we were talking about, I just would suck it up. But I was young and I could bounce back. After hitting a certain age, maybe 35, 40, I realized I just don't have that ability anymore. So I make it very clear. It's not because I'm being antisocial. It's not because I don't want to hang. It's because I know the best version of myself is not going to be available the next day when I have to go and do a net broadcast or a college hoops broadcast or an NFL broadcast, TV, radio, whatever it might be. So I just started saying no. You made mention of Jim Jackson. Jim's a great guy. We really hit it off and had a lot of fun on the air, had a lot of laughs off the air as well. But Jim goes off a different schedule. He likes a cigar after the game, sometimes two. And that can take you into the wee hours of the morning, and he's cool with it. I am not. I can't hang at that level anymore. So you got to know your limitations as a human being.
And I only bring that up because I've heard, I've never called a game myself, but I've heard about how, especially when there are NCAA tournament events where maybe before the tournament starts, you get there, and before you start watching practice or attending practice, there's a get together. People go out, they hang out, they have drinks, they have dinner, and then they go out afterwards, and they have these get together type of moments, which could last 2, 3, 4, 5 hours because you don't see these people all the time, which is where that thought came into my mind. I understand the thought about no, but I also understand you don't see these people every day. And so the thought of let's get together, let's hang out a little bit. It's fun, but sleep's also important too. Sleep is fun. Sleep is important. Sleep's also fun.
Yeah. The bottom line somewhere, again, along the way, I realized that the main objective is to do quality work. And that's what you're ultimately going to be judged on. Are you doing the best work that you can do on whatever assignment you've been given? And whatever happens behind the scenes to get to that, that's all individually based within different broadcasters, within different crews, how you bond with your analyst. That's really important to me. When I go on the air, I want the analyst to know that they can trust me, that they can go anywhere on the air, and I'm going to go there with them. And I'm going to make sure that we delve into that and then get back to where we have to be in order to ensure that the viewers are getting what they need out of the telecast. But finding chemistry is really important. And you're right. Sometimes that's at a dinner, and sometimes that's at a production meeting or at a lunch or on the car ride over to the game. You've got to be mindful of that, and you have to be smart about it, and you can't force it. So in this particular case with Jim Jackson, we didn't know each other very well. We get paired together during the regular season, so we were doing games every Tuesday night, and then we get paired together in the playoffs, and for 3 weeks, we're together a lot of hours, and you can't fake that kind of chemistry. When it works on the air, it usually means that it's working off the air, at least in my estimation. It doesn't mean that you have to be best friends with everybody that you work with, but you do have to find common ground. And you're right. It can come in a number of different ways how you get there. On a personal level, again, we've talked some food here, and the fact that I do not succumb to peer pressure. Basically, from September through May, I don't really drink. I might have a beer here and there, but I did find somewhere along my path that it affected my performance, that it affected my sleep or affected my throat or affected my stamina, whatever it might have been. I just made the decision that I'm not going to do that over the course of the season. Once the season ends and I get back home and I'm with my wife and I'm in a social situation, I don't go drastically the other way, but I do enjoy adult beverages, usually on a nightly basis during the off season. That's my time to let off some steam, not worry about what time I have to wake up, what chart I have to make for the game that I'm doing, how to compartmentalize and juggle the assignments so my mind is clear and free. And again, nobody mentioned that. Nobody told me that. An older broadcaster didn't say it to me. I just figured out what worked for me. I went out to dinner with Bill Raftery, my wife and I, and Bill and his wife last night. And it's a little different for me going to dinner with Bill in late May, early June than it is in February when we've got Ohio State at Michigan State, and Bill likes to enjoy a libation or two, and I want to get back and work on my notes.
I have never understood how he can, even up into this stage in life, still be able to do the things he does, enjoy the drinks he does, enjoy the staying out later like he does, and still be on top of his game every time he's on a broadcast. You know him personally, like I said, going back to the 90s. So you have a great view of how he does. Well, maybe you don't have a great view of it, but a better view than many of us about how he's able to live like he lives, have the fun he has, and the way that he has that fun, and still be the guy we love to hear on broadcast whenever he's on them.
Jay, I would tell you the answer is pretty simple. He's not human. He's not. It's not a philosophy that most people could pull off, and he can. He's got a gift. He's obviously a fantastic communicator, and the likability scale is through the roof. And what you see is what you get. Who he is on the air is who he is off the air. And there's a reason why people gravitate towards him. And, I've noticed, obviously, doing so many games with him through the years, that he will attract people from all backgrounds, as you could imagine. We'll go to dinner, and there have been times where he's invited other people in a given town, and it could be a local golf pro. It could be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. It could be a guy who is an accountant that played for him in the 1970s. It could be a caddy at a golf course that he played at. It could be someone that was a runner on a broadcast from the 1980s that maintained communication with him and is now married with 3 kids and has nothing to do with sports. This is just who he is. So the social aspect of it is what makes him comfortable. And I think it keeps him young. That's the other part. Somehow that life has kept him youthful and has connected him to several generations of college basketball fans and basketball fans in general. And it's part of his charm. It's part of his allure. And he is a unique soul. That's the bottom line.
Yes, he is. You said a word that sparked something in my mind, the word connected. You've been connected with the Nets, New Jersey, Brooklyn, for quite some time. So you've been able to get to know numerous players, get behind the scenes of numerous teams for 25 plus years, 25, 26, something like that. It's been a long time. What we witnessed this year with this team, with the talent that was put together there in Brooklyn, you had a way to connect with them as far as knowing some behind the scenes things and some things going on that nobody else was able to get to know. But you're also trying to prepare for games. Was this harder for you to prepare for these games due to the things with Kyrie Irving and the things with the other players and the coaching and things like that versus how hard it was maybe for some other years? How does this one rank as far as difficulty and preparation for games? Because one, being honest with you, I don't know if you knew. I know a lot of people from my standpoint didn't know if Kyrie Irving was going to play in games. So I venture from you making charts and trying to know things going on into the game. It might be a little difficult for you to probably prepare for some of these games.
Difficulty level, no. I don't think it was any more difficult this year than it had been in past years. I have a way of doing things and a system, and I've grown very comfortable in the way that I prepare. It still requires a lot of man hours, and it certainly requires attention and time and energy. You just want to know that you go into any of these broadcasts, no matter if it's national, local, TV, radio, at the level that you need in order to do your job well and to feel that comfort level that you're not going to be distracted, that you can lock in the concentration that it requires to do these games and to do them at a high level. I've figured it out through the years. So with the Nets this year, believe it or not, it was easier in many ways because the relevance level was so high and the news was constant. So you weren't searching for a lead story. You weren't trying to go deeper to find another layer. Every day there seemed to be something else. Trust me, I did a lot of rough net seasons where you hit game 35, 40, and you know they're done. They're out of it. And you start questioning with your producer. In my case, I've worked with Frank DeGrace for 20 plus years, so we can finish each other's sentences. He knows what I'm thinking. I know where he's going. And because of that, we're symbiotic in how we do these games. But we've gotten some of the years to game 35, 40, and we'll look at each other and say, all right, now what? What are we going to do? What's on the menu tonight? How many different ways can you describe losing by 20 points? So the intrigue of this year actually kept it rather easy in terms of the preparation. I think the part you're alluding to is more of the disappointment that the team didn't quite live up to it and how to best convey that to the viewer, to the net fan. And the last game that I did for the Nets was game 3 of the first round series against the Celtics. I did the game locally on Yes in New York while I was also doing the Turner playoff games. And I guarantee you, if you watch back that game, you could hear the frustration from both me and Sarah Kustok working the game, because you could feel it. You could feel that this team was not going to fulfill all of the promise that we thought they had prior to the season. So in a strange way, the stakes were higher than ever. And I think the fact that Nets fans had to withstand that kind of hit, they weren't accustomed to it. Normally, they're not viewing the game through that lens. It's usually been in a different role, which is underdog, or we're going to prove everybody wrong. This year, it flipped on them.
Yeah, and you mentioned the news, and I think that's one way that people get news today. It may be the television, a lot of it social media, and so we're getting updates and notifications on our phone all the time. And I think that news might raise the level of anticipation and expectation about how much news we're getting, how quick things are coming. Oh, the Nets got this person. Oh, the Nets got that person. Yeah. Oh, they have, not this year, but they have Steve Nash as a coach. And so, well, he didn't come in this year, but you have all of these names, and people think, oh, they have these names. Of course they're going to be X, Y, or Z. But as you mentioned with the chemistry of you and broadcasters, and you want to try to build chemistry off air before going on air, so it seems very organic and natural, that expectation and that chemistry people thought would automatically be there, it wasn't. But also, it's hard to build chemistry if you don't know who the point guard's going to be, or if you don't know if someone gets hurt, injuries happen, it's kind of hard to build that chemistry. And I think that's one thing that fell with the Nets. They really never got those amount of games consistently to build that chemistry that's needed to make deep playoff runs.
Yeah, you nailed it, Jay. The chemistry wasn't there. I think there was a perception that they were so talented that they'd be able to turn it on and turn it off whenever they wanted. And what we did discover towards the end of the season, when the Nets needed a certain amount of wins to ensure a play-in spot and then home court in the play-in, you just assume that they would blow out Detroit and Indiana and Cleveland and the teams they were playing at that point, the Knicks. And they didn't. They got wins, but they were grind them out last-minute decisions. And that was the first real indicator to me that the team probably wasn't going to have the kind of postseason success that we just forecast for them, and it was going to be tougher. And lo and behold, they played a team that's now part of the NBA Finals, the Boston Celtics. Every month they got better. They had a couple of moments that may have been epiphanies where They had to work through some things early with new head coach Udoka and the team, and rumors of maybe they're going to break these guys up and separate Tatum and Brown. Ultimately, they fought through it, and they got better because of it.
They did get better. And how does this team compare? Now, when I say go back a little bit, I'm going back 20 years because I grew up when I fell in love with the NBA. It was Jason Kidd, Vince Carter, Kenyon Martin. Did the expectations leading into some of those seasons, I know they were there multiple years, but did those expectations leading up until some of those years, did you feel some of the same expectations for this current, former Nets team?
Yeah, I think the one difference, Jay, was that came out of left field. When Jason Kidd was acquired by the Nets prior to that 01-02 season, they had won 26 games the year before.
Good point.
Kidd comes in. Everybody thought, wow, if he could get them to 500, that would be an immense accomplishment. They won 52 games that year. They were the number one seed. They beat Indiana in the first round. They went the distance. That was the last year of the best 3 out of 5, and it went to double OT. Kidd, Reggie Miller, great duel. Kidd ends up winning the series with the Nets, and they advance. They beat Charlotte, good Charlotte team, in the second round. They play Boston in the conference finals. They absorbed one of the worst postseason losses in NBA history, a comeback of epic proportions by the Celtics. You assume, well, that's it. Boston's going to cruise. They're up 2-1. They have a chance to go up 3-1 at home. The Nets win the game. They don't lose another game in that series. They end up getting swept by the Lakers in the NBA Finals. They come back the next year. They're really good again. And they plow through the competition in the Eastern Conference. If you remember, they won 10 straight postseason games. Just think about that now under the current backdrop. If a team won 10 consecutive playoff games, the last 2 of the first round, and then 4 straight against Detroit and Boston, a Detroit team that ended up winning the title just a year later. So a really good Pistons squad. And they get to the NBA Finals. They play the San Antonio Spurs. They had chances in that series. They were leading Game 6 by, I believe, 19 or 20 points. Couldn't finish the deal, and they lose the series in 6. And at that point, the bloom had come off the rose a bit, and unfortunately, they never quite matched it. They went to 7 games the next year in the conference semifinals against Detroit. Pistons ultimately won the NBA championship. And then it started to fall apart a bit. Kenyon Martin goes to Denver. They do acquire Vince Carter. And
he was after your career.
Correct. He wasn't part of that initial group. And they still had some quality teams, but never to the level that you thought they would win an NBA championship. This was different. This was getting into bed with superstars, and they wanted to come to Brooklyn. Prior to New Jersey, everything else was done via trade. Jason Kidd was acquired from Phoenix or draft. Kenyon Martin, Richard Jefferson, Kerry Kittles, all draft picks. Vince Carter acquired from Toronto. What Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving did, it was the first time the Nets were the belle of the ball, where somebody wanted to come play for them. Not, all right, I'll take a little extra money at the end of my career and I'll play for the Nets. No, in the prime of their careers, they wanted to come play for them. And that's why the expectations have been so high.
Iean, this, I'm trying to go somewhere else here really quickly. Oh, here it is. It's right in front of me. We're talking about basketball so much, and I knew I was going to try to go back to college basketballs at some point. But then also I had to circle back to the NBA, trying to connect the two, because I saw it was a Ja Morant dunk, a jawbreaker. I don't know where that came from. I saw that video. I sent it to my buddy who lives in, I think he's back in Massachusetts now, and he's like, Iean Eagle's the best. Then I went back to Caleb Love during the NCAA tournament, and people on Twitter were saying Iean Eagle doesn't miss, which is true. But we see it in the NFL, we see it in college, but you somehow find a way. And I don't know if I know you can't really prepare for these things. I think in the moment you might prepare just like, wait, what did I say was going to happen in this moment? If he hit this shot from 28 feet, I was going to say this, and this. You kind of forget those things. but you're very quick on your feet and you always know what to say in the right moment. And it may go back. I don't know where I forgot all about this. Your parents being comedians, that might assist you right now in your own profession.
There's no doubt. Jay, first of all, thank you. And thanks to your friend who's in Massachusetts now. And
You're welcome.
It's probably the best compliment that you could give a broadcaster is what you just said. You know what to say in the right moment. That's what everybody in this industry, when you do play-by-play, you aspire to that. You just want to be able to caption the moment. You never want to take away from it. You'd like to enhance it if possible, but you also don't want to become the story. So the best thing that you can do as a broadcaster is if the moment stands on its own and you can add a little bit and complement it, and if it becomes the right call for the right moment, that's the perfect marriage in broadcasting. And that's how I've tried to look at it. I think doing the NBA for as many years as I have, it forced me to do a few things. One, you got to pay attention, because at any moment you could have a play of the year candidate, and that could be in a 20-point game. So the idea that you get stuck looking at your notes or distracted looking at something else, and that's trial and error. Probably my first few years in the NBA trying to prove that I knew my stuff and that I was well prepared, I probably did get stuck in my notes looking down, and now a big play happens and you're playing catch up in the moment, not the condiment, but the actual action. So I really do take it as the ultimate compliment. You know, where do these things come from? I like wordplay, and I like alliteration, and I like things that are pleasing to the ear. So if you can find the right combination of words, descriptors, and do it with the correct amount of punctuation, then you might have something on your hands. Does it work every time? No. You know, I'll workshop some things on local broadcast with the Nets where I might have a little more leeway and the audience has more familiarity with me. So, you know, they'll give me a pass if something doesn't connect. On a national broadcast, you've got to be highly selective, and you know that it's a larger cross-section in your audience. So I was probably more hesitant when I was younger in my career, working for CBS or working for TNT. And now I'm probably more at a stage where I'm willing to let it rip a little bit more. And if something strikes me in the moment that I think could be entertaining to the audience, I'll give it a shot. But on some of the calls that you alluded to, you got a lot of things that are swirling in your head or marinating in your brain. You just don't know when it's going to happen, when it's going to pop up. Are you going to have that call in your mind when the moment hits? I just know that as a broadcaster, I really try to make it my business to meet the moment. I want to do justice to the moment. And the one thing that we know in play-by-play, you don't get a second take. So if there's a great highlight and 10 years from now, you go on YouTube and you want to watch it back, you don't get to do it again. So you got to live with whatever you said and how you said it. And my philosophy has been go for the gusto if it's available.
I love the humor, and I'll say humor because I do find it humorous, some of the things that you were able to come up with, particularly in basketball. I know football, the pacing is different.
Yeah.
So you have a little bit more time. You're playing off of your analyst a little bit more. Not say a little bit more, but your analyst gets more time to talk in between plays. So things might come up in conversation that assist you on a Lamar Jackson touchdown run or Joe Burrow touchdown pass, things like that. Basketball is so quick. You don't really have the time, even if your analyst is talking, to quickly be able to do things. So I find humor not only in what you say, because some of the things you say are humorous, yes, but I also love how quick on your toes you are consistently, which is hard. I've been podcasting. I've been doing this for over 3 years now. I host a couple, And I understand, like in preparation, I know I'm going to say certain things. Some of those things don't come out. And if they do come out, they might not come out the way I thought they would come out because
Right.
I'm just rattling it off and just keep going and going and going. And sometimes people, especially on YouTube, they have no problem letting you know how you mess things up. I'm like, look, man, I'm just human, trying to have some fun, trying to give you some entertainment here. No, but you're quick on your toes, and I do find the humor because some of the things you say, I wrote one down. Love is all around for the Tar Heels. In the moment, it fits, it clicks, and there's humor in it because I just love how everything just really connects with you in these moments.
Really appreciate it more than anything else. Look, I think everybody believes somewhere deep in their heart that they're clever or have the ability to say something funny in the moment. It's hard. It's tough when you're on the air and wearing a headset and the game's happening and you've got all this different stimuli. The hope is you can cut through and resonate in some way. And if you try too hard, that's an issue. People will recognize that and say, oh man, this guy or this gal is just taking swing after swing after swing. So it really is instinctual in many ways. And it's also based on a lot of reps, a lot of repetition, of doing games, of feeling the moment, of understanding how that might work, how it may not work, when to lay back, when to step forward, when you've got the right call with the right player and the right result, and trying to combine all those things in a moment's notice. And it also depends on the stage. If you're doing that in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, where the most important thing is the basketball and not your wordplay, that might be an issue. The Ja Morant call, to me, it was just such a standout dunk. It required more than just, for me, big finish or man's jam or big time flush. It required something a little extra. And fortunately, that came into my brain at the right moment on the right play. You throw that out there on a lesser play, I don't know if people would have connected with it in that way. It just happened to be on one of the best playoff dunks we've ever seen. And this wordplay with his name. His name is also gold, let's face it.
Yes.
There's a lot of places you can go, but that one is the one that hit me in the moment.
It does. People do connect with Iean. We talk about him and the sayings that he has and how I connect with them, but we talk about CBS and doing NFL and college basketball. We talk about TNT with NBA basketball. Talk about the Yes Network, and you've been there for quite a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think many people know. We're going to close out with this. I don't think many people know that you do tennis for the Tennis Channel and have done it. I think you said 15 years calling the French Open.
Yep.
If I didn't Google this stuff, and I did it a couple years ago when I had you on as well, I would have had no idea that you, tennis, French Open, that whole connection for 15 years was you two there. I would have had no idea. Do you have a love for tennis that many people don't know about?
I did play as a kid. I was a ball boy in Forest Hill, so I had a background in it. And I always had an interest if the right situation popped up to call tennis. So I get to CBS. They have the U.S. Open, but they were all set. They had their broadcasters. One year, they called me. They said, look, Rich Eisen is doing a late night show, but he can't stay from the U.S. Open, but he can't stay the entire 2 weeks. Could you step in for the final 5 days of it? I said, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So that was really my first foray into tennis. And that role then turned into a play-by-play role with CBS. They saw that I knew my stuff, that I was prepared, that I had a passion for it. So I ended up calling some U.S. Opens for CBS. Tennis Channel was a new venture. They got the rights to the French Open. and they were starting from scratch. And Jay, I'm not exaggerating. I got a call about 10 days before that first French Open.
Oh, wow.
From my agent at the time saying, hey, could you get to Paris and work the French Open if Tennis Channel figured out the dates and the fee? I said, yeah, I could do it. And that was the first year I worked it for Tennis Channel. It went well. I got brought back for the next year. They brought me on for some other tournaments, one in Indianapolis, another in Cincinnati, Ohio, another in Miami, another in Washington, D.C. And all of a sudden, it became a part of my yearly schedule. So I really enjoy the people, absolutely enjoy the action. And who knows? I'm not sure if this is going to be for the rest of my career, if it'll be occasionally, but I've been able to drop in on certain sports that I didn't think I was necessarily going to have a chance to call play-by-play for: golf, track and field, boxing, and I enjoyed all of them. I found my sweet spot in doing these sports, and I would attack them like I would attack a football game or a basketball game. I treated it no different. Different maybe in the way you do the job. Mm-hmm. Certainly less talking, less description, finding your moments and spots to jump in. But in terms of the prep, in terms of bonding with your analyst, in terms of that team concept, it was a lot of the same. And I used many of the same edicts that I would use in other sports to call those.
Do you have a favorite moment, maybe a favorite tournament from calling the French Open over the past 10 plus years as you've done it that sticks out when you think about some of the more enjoyable ones that you've been able to work?
Well, I ended up calling so many Nadal matches over that time, and he's going to go down as the greatest clay court player in history, and certainly one of the greatest players in history. Novak Djokovic may go down as the better all-around player. Roger Federer may go down as the greatest champion. Whatever it may be, Rafael Nadal, it will never be matched, what he's done at the French Open. And my time there coincided with his run. So to see his dominance year in, year out, matches-wise, you name the player, I called their match over the course of that 14, 15-year period, men's and women's. So I can't even begin to tell you how many memorable moments I had. And it's just a cool vibe there, being there, the red clay, the people, the fans, the culture. I really have enjoyed that assignment. I've retained no French whatsoever.
Really?
It's very sad. I still cannot communicate at restaurants or at the hotel. It's crazy. The one thing that I did notice from the French is they have a way of saying no to you and doing it in a manner where you're not convinced that they're coming from a negative place. They just frame it in a way that's unique. So one of the years I was there, the air conditioning in the hotel broke.
Oh man.
Literally second day of the tournament. And I don't know about you, Jay. I need my air conditioning.
Yeah.
I need 69 degrees to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Anything above, not going to work for me. Well, as you can imagine, the room I'm staying in, it was sweltering hot. So I go downstairs the next morning, front desk. I said, air conditioning? They said, oh, yes, no, it's not working. I said, how about a fan? Can you give me a fan? He said, no, it's not possible. It's not possible.
That's crazy.
So when you think about it, no, it's very possible.
It is.
You can get me a fan. What you're saying is you're not going to get me a fan. So the way he framed it somehow wasn't that terrible, but the end result was not good. I left the hotel. That was the end result.
Oh, well, you did find a way to get out of that.
I did get out of that situation.
This is always fun. It's always fun. I dropped the ball last year but we have to have you back on again next year. Before
Done.
we even close this episode out, do you have any last comments? And I say this, I open this up to outside of sports. Stuff's crazy. I don't want to go any further than that. Things are crazy in the country. People are having different emotions. Social media is not helping it at all. I'm just going to say that myself. But
Yeah.
do you have any last comments you want to leave people with as far as last comments before we wrap up this show?
Yeah, I mean, Jay, for me, the way that I've tried to live my life is how I treat others, and putting good in the world is important to me. And I think if everybody viewed life through that prism, we'd be in a better place. Thinking about your neighbor, caring about your neighbor. And when we get caught up in being selfish and being narcissistic and doing for one's self only, is when we lose sight of what was supposed to make this country great. And, unfortunately, we're at a time where that's become a lost part of our society. If we could somehow get to a place where we actually think about others, and the goal, Jay, I know this is pretty simple, but the goal in life, don't be an asshole. It doesn't take that much work to be kind and to be considerate. So that would be what I've tried to teach my kids and what I've believed in for a long time. And I did learn that from my parents, and it goes a long way. It goes a long way. And we're in a different place now where you can communicate on the phone, with email, text, never have to talk to a person, never have to look a person in the eye. And that's become part of how we've grown more disconnected than ever before. You talk to somebody in an elevator or in a hallway somewhere, they're taken aback that you would say something to them like hello or good morning or how's your day. And that has contributed, in my mind, to a lot of what we're facing today, which is not understanding one another and not finding common ground.
This is fun. Always fun having you on. I will not drop the ball next year. I keep saying that, but trust me. Next year, around this same time, maybe the first day of the month of June, once again, we'll record, go about 40, 45 minutes and just chop it up and just discuss whatever. Anything's on the table, we'll have you back on. Thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. I truly appreciate it.
Jay, my pleasure. Great to talk with you. 2023, I'll reveal 5 more foods I've never eaten. So that's a big tease for a year.